why they couldn't stay until you changed one thing. They said they loved you. They looked at you like you were the calm in their storm. And yet, they left. Not in anger, not always in words, but in distance, in silence, in sudden coldness you never saw coming. How does someone who once opened up to you, who called you their safe place, suddenly disappear the moment things feel real? You didn't scream. You didn't demand too much. You just cared. You got close. And that was enough to make them pull away. Maybe you told yourself it was timing, that they weren't ready, that love just overwhelmed them. But in your quietest moments, you still wonder, what did I do that made them leave? What did I not do that might have made them stay? You kept replaying the moments. How one honest message, one emotional conversation, one small request for closeness was all it took to change everything. Suddenly, they weren't smiling at your texts anymore. They weren't calling at night. They weren't reaching back. And you felt it. That familiar drop in your stomach. That invisible shift that told you they were gone before they even said it. Not because they didn't feel something, but because what they felt terrified them more than losing you. That's the part no one tells you. Avoidants don't run because they feel nothing. They run because they feel too much and don't know what to do with it. They don't leave because you weren't enough. They leave because intimacy flips a switch in their nervous system that says, run before you're trapped. Push them away before they see the parts of you you've hidden from yourself. And here's the cruel irony. The more deeply you connect with them, the more danger they perceive. But you were real. You were steady. You weren't trying to control them. You just wanted connection. And that was something their inner world wasn't wired to hold. So they left, but not without looking back. Not without remembering you in silence. Not without reading your last message 100 times. Even if they never replied. Here's the haunting truth you felt in your bones. They won't stay unless you do something different. Not something louder. Not something more impressive. Not something more giving. But something almost no one tells you. Because it's not about what you do to them. It's what you do with yourself. If you don't change this, you'll keep meeting people who get close, but not close enough to stay. People who make you feel deeply seen, only to disappear the moment they're seen too. But if you change it, if you understand what it is that triggers their fear, if you stop chasing, explaining, and abandoning yourself to win love, that's when everything shifts. That's when the avoidant no longer feels the need to escape. That's when you stop becoming the trigger, and love finally has a chance to stay. What makes them pull away, and why you keep repeating it. Let's make something clear. What pushes an avoidant away is not your love. It's what your love represents. Closeness, dependence, the terrifying possibility of being truly seen. You see, avoidant attachment doesn't begin in adulthood. It's not about commitment issues or emotional immaturity. Not entirely. It's about a deep-rooted defense mechanism that formed in childhood. When a child reaches for love and finds inconsistency, withdrawal, or rejection instead, they learn something devastating. Closeness is dangerous. Needs make you weak. Connection leads to pain. So they adapt. They shut it down. They stop reaching out. They learn to self-soothe by not needing anyone at all. And they carry this armor into adulthood, like a silent contract with the world. I will not be hurt again. But here's the catch. They still crave love. They still long for intimacy. They still want what they fear. So they're drawn to people like you. Empathic, emotionally available, willing to go deep, willing to love. But the moment your love starts to feel safe, they panic. Because safety, to them, is unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar is unsafe. They've spent their lives building distance, control, independence, And when you lean in, when you open your heart, they feel their defenses start to crack. That's when they pull away. That's when they get cold, distant, irritable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because something inside them has been triggered. And here's where it gets even more painful. When this happens, you often blame yourself. You try harder. You over-explain. You send another long message. Just to clarify. Just to be understood. You think, if I can just make them see how much I care, maybe they won't leave. But every time you chase their closeness, you confirm their fear. That love will consume them. That connection will cost them control. That intimacy will demand more than they can give. You unknowingly step into the role they fear most. The one who wants too much. The one who will eventually get hurt. The one who reminds them of the very neediness they've repressed. So they push. You pursue. They disappear. You analyze every detail of what you could have done differently. And the cycle repeats. Not just with them, but with anyone whose love you have to earn. Because here's the real hidden problem. You've been trained, too, maybe not to avoid closeness, but to chase it, to fix people, to prove your worth through emotional labor. You might not have had avoidant parents, but maybe you had emotionally inconsistent ones, or you grew up being the peacemaker, the strong one, the caretaker. You learned that your needs could wait, that your love had to be useful, that you had to work for someone to stay. And when you meet someone who doesn't stay unless you do all the emotional lifting, it doesn't feel toxic. It feels familiar. This dynamic, where you give more just to keep someone emotionally half present. It's not love. It's reenactment. You're reliving a pattern, and they are, too. Two people trying to protect their wounds in opposite ways, one by pulling away, and the other by holding on tighter. That's why they couldn't stay, and that's why you couldn't let go. Until now, when you love them more than yourself. You don't even notice it at first. How slowly your world starts revolving around them. How your nervous system begins bracing for their next mood swing, their next withdrawal. How your mind starts rehearsing every word you might say just to avoid triggering them. This isn't love. It's hypervigilance. It's the emotional tension of walking barefoot over glass and calling it passion. They don't have to yell. They don't have to threaten to leave. All they have to do is detach. One moment they're warm, responsive. The next, they're cold, unreadable. And just like that, you're scrambling to understand what changed. You go quiet when they go quiet. You try to sound chill, even when your heart is breaking. You pretend you don't need much, just so they won't run. But every time you betray your needs to preserve the connection, you lose a part of yourself. You don't realize how expensive that trade is until you're emotionally bankrupt. Because here's the unseen cost of loving someone who won't meet you halfway. You start shrinking. You minimize your desires. You second-guess your intuition. You silence your truth so you can stay safe in the relationship. You keep convincing yourself that if you just love them right, they'll stop pulling away. They'll wake up. They'll come back changed. But avoidance, the one thing they can't handle. There's one thing an avoidant fears more than closeness. And it's this: your calm detachment. Not the kind where you fake indifference to get a reaction. Not the manipulative silence. But the real, grounded decision to choose your peace over their push-pull chaos. Because when you finally stop performing for their approval, when you stop begging for crumbs, you interrupt the very pattern that lets them run and still feel wanted. They've spent their life outrunning intimacy, but still needing to feel desired from a distance. So when you stop chasing, when you stop pleading, when your energy becomes unavailable, they feel it in their nervous system, in the pit of their stomach, in the deafening quiet they used to find comfort in. You're not punishing them. You're just no longer playing the role they subconsciously cast you in. The overgiver, the peacekeeper, the one who tries harder every time they detach. But now, you are something different. You are rooted, self-aware, emotionally sovereign. You no longer collapse to keep their attention. You no longer romanticize their inconsistency as mystery. You've looked long enough into their shadows. And now, you are ready to return to your light. This is what real detachment looks like. Not walls, but clarity. Not coldness, but boundaries. Not revenge, but release. And when you live from this place, you stop trying to be chosen by those who never chose themselves. You stop hoping that your love will fix what they refuse to face. Because you finally understand. You were never too much. You were just trying to love someone who didn't know how to receive it. And the day you stop trying to be enough for someone who never even let you in, that's the day you become more than enough for yourself. You spend so long wondering what more you could have done. What softer words, what stronger silence, what better timing would have made them stay. But in the stillness that follows their distance, you begin to realize something that no one tells you soon enough. It was never about saying the perfect thing. It was about being someone they couldn't control by withdrawing. Avoidants don't stay for the person who gives them everything. They stay for the one who gives them space to feel, structure to return to, and sovereignty that doesn't collapse into their storms. They stay for the one who does not fear their silence, because they found safety in their own voice. Here's what you need to know now, not just in your mind, but in your nervous system. People with avoidant attachment aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of needing you. They're afraid of what it means to let someone in and then lose them. They're afraid that your closeness will smother them and that your absence will hollow them. So they exist in a tightrope of denial, pushing love away only to miss it the second it's gone. And the more you contort to keep them close, the more they lose respect for you, not because they're cruel, but because they don't trust what doesn't stand firm. So what's the truth that sets you free? It's this. You are not here to fix their fear of love. You are not here to make yourself smaller so they don't feel trapped. You are not here to teach someone how to hold what they refuse to reach for. The minute you shift from trying to be safe for them to being true to yourself, something powerful happens. Their nervous system finally meets a force that doesn't dissolve into their distance, a mirror that doesn't lose itself in their shadow. And that's when they panic, not because you're leaving, but because you're no longer waiting. You're no longer handing your wholeness to their wounds. The avoidant doesn't stay for comfort. They stay when your boundaries awaken them. They stay when they realize you will not tolerate connection without accountability. They stay when they know that love isn't a prison, but a place where both people get to breathe, feel, and choose each other fully. But here's the hardest truth. They might not choose it. And if they don't, that's not your failure. That's your freedom. Because love that requires your silence, your contortion, your self-erasure to survive, was never love to begin with. So now, you choose. Not whether they come back, not whether they finally see you, but whether you will stay in your power, in your peace, in your self-worth. Because that's what real love starts with. Not proving you're enough, but knowing you already are. Let go of waiting to be chosen. Let go of shrinking so they feel safe. Instead, reclaim your energy from anyone who punishes your presence and profits from your patience. Speak your truth without fear of who leaves. Trust that love will never require you to abandon yourself. If they can't meet you where you are, let them walk. The right one won't just stay. They'll rise to meet you, because you'll no longer settle for less than someone who does.